small till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't. I'm building up a wall till it breaks. She hated when I call and it's late. I don't wanna keep you waiting. I hope I never keep you waiting. She think I know it all, but I don't. Hi everybody.
Hi,
Hey
Scott.
Scott.
How was y'all's welcome to this week's episode of The Odd Couple. That
Thank
was
you. Good to
I'm
be
still
here.
working on the way to say that kind of thing.
How to open it up, how to do an
How to
intro.
open it up. I don't have like a good
You don't have your
we
pattern.
don't have yeah, we don't know exactly how to say it. What was why don't we go around and introduce ourselves?
Excellent. I'm Caitlin Myers. I am a professor at Middlebury College.
I'm Hannah Sayer. I work in economic consulting, and I'm Caitlin Meyer's former student at Middlebury.
And I'm Scott Cunningham. I'm a professor at Baylor in the econ department and visiting professor at Harvard this year, almost over. Well, we are doing our weekly podcast about doing a research project with Claude Code,
Yeah, start to finish in public.
start to finish in public. Pioneers. No one's ever done this before,
To our knowledge.
to our knowledge.
Don't know
Yeah.
what we don't know.
Yeah, there's like 30 million podcasts. What are the odds
Yeah,
that there's not one?
yeah. Or there's like a reason nobody's done this before. And we're
Exactly.
we're the only fools who are like, let's write a paper
Exactly.
while
High
everybody
risk, high
watches.
reward. Yeah. Well, I have an icebreaker for us, and then we're
All
gonna get
right.
started. We're gonna listen to Hannah tell us about what her work has been like the last couple of weeks. So we'll go ahead and start with the icebreaker. And Hannah, you'll go first.
I'm scared.
Okay. Hannah, tell me a paper or a book or an event that really caused you to fall in love with economics and economic research or economics. Let's say that.
Hmm. I think it would have to be just regression analysis, the class at Middlebury, which I took sophomore year with Professor Tanya Biker. And I guess I had used R previously in economic statistics, but uh, I remember like having an aha moment in my brain about how cool it was that you could use statistics to explain how the real world works and
Mm,
interesting questions about how one variable affects the other. And that was my moment where I said, I think I'm going to fall in love with this kind of work. And then when I ran my first regression with my thesis, I also like kind of jumped up and down just because I thought it was really exciting. So that
what
would
kind
be,
of topics, what were you doing in that regression class that was so cool?
well, I think it was the standard like class size test scores. But I think it was more about and we did a little bit of proofs in that class, but the kind of math
Mm,
behind how the regression equation works and how that boils down into a simple stata command that has such real world implication.
that's cool. That's cool. Converting people and with regressions.
Hmm.
Wow. That's cool. Good.
Yeah, that's the class where we get them.
Yeah, we hook them
They
there.
come into regression analysis, which is what we call it at Middlebury. They call it econometrics like everywhere else. But
Oh.
so our students take a semester of stats and then a semester of econometrics that are required for the major. And I just feel like when they're coming into econometrics, which I also teach, although not as well as Tanya Biker,
We teach advanced econometrics
I
as
also
well.
teach an advanced course, yeah. But I would just say like students tend to come in that class with some mixture of like uh, profound fear and or an
Mm.
expectation they're going to be really bored. And they come in with like such low expectations, and then you get to shock and awe them with the power of the tools. And I just feel like it's the class where I've seen so many students get that surprise and get hooked. And Scott, my answer is the same as Hannah's, only it took place years after it should have. So I enrolled in a PhD before I knew I wanted to be an economist. I just didn't know.
Mm.
What I knew was that I didn't want to have a job making spreadsheets for other people forever, which was basically my first post-college
You wanted to
job.
make spreadsheets for yourself.
I wanted to make spreadsheets for myself, damn it, not for a bunch of engineers. And so I was like, I like that first post-college job, it was dull. And
Yeah.
so I scurried back to school. I was in Austin, Texas. I only applied to one school, to the local school. And it wasn't until my second semester there when I took Econometrics 1 with Dan Slesnick, and I had never taken econometrics as an undergrad. And it was just like angels were singing. I was I was like, "Oh, wait, wait, wait. I have all of these questions about the world."
Yeah.
And for me, so many of my questions, like they're kind of basic. They're about things you can actually count and measure. And I was like, they weren't like what's a paradox or what's truth or what's beauty. They were like, you know, how do you decompose the gender wage gap? So I was like, here we
Mm.
go.
You were always, were you sort of always though maybe more interested in public policy than like the average econ major that you saw it was at Tulane, right?
Tulane is where I went undergrad. I was a Latin American Studies major at Tulane, and I tacked on econ at the end as an afterthought. I don't know. Was I always more interested in policy? I don't know.
I
I'm
mean, even
interested
when
in
you're
all the
talking right
econ
now, you
questions.
when you say decompose the gender wage gap, it's not like it's screaming that you're interested in public policy. It's kind of still very scientific behavioral, a little bit.
Yeah, I have questions about the world, and it turns
Yeah,
out it's not like we have the only tools, and it's not like
right.
our tools answer all the questions. But for a whole lot of my questions, they're pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy to hear that you could go to grad school without having taken econometrics before. Those days are so gone, but
They
I'm
are
glad that it was
so gone.
allowed.
Get
Oh,
ready, Hannah.
I
Scott
can
knows this
pump
because he
this.
interviewed me about this before, but I will confess to you also that I went to grad school, PhD in econ. My only formal math training was Calculus 1.
Oh,
Wow.
this is why we're friends. That's the same with me. Okay, my turn. I was a literature major. I never took any econ classes in college. The only thing I would have taken was my entire uh we had Marxist critical theory for as a hermeneutic for most of my classes, but even then that's not really, you're not reading Marx. And so I had I had never had any math. I took a pre-calculus class my freshman year, and then I quit going, and then I got to retake it my senior year. And then when I got my first job in New Orleans, I moved to New Orleans and was got a job doing qualitative research, which is not quantitative focus groups. I was every night just reading on the internet. I loved that job. I loved studying people and talking to them and learning why they did the things they did. But I didn't like. It's funny you said you didn't want to build other people's spreadsheet. I didn't want to answer other people's questions.
Yeah,
I wanted to answer my own questions, but I loved the methodology. I loved talking to people and
yeah.
doing interviews. But I read Gary Brecker's Nobel Prize speech, The Economic Way of Looking at Life, randomly, and just was captivated because he studied all these things that I had always been interested in, like crime, education, discrimination, the family, marriage. And he approached it with this interesting angle, which was, people were maximizing something. I didn't know what those words meant, but they were doing things for their own subjective goals, which was sort of like the framework you take in qualitative research. You would be like, why are you doing the things you're doing? What is it that's important to you that would make you want to quit this job or buy this detergent or whatever, except it was just kind of more marketing kinds of questions, whereas Becker was asking the big questions. And so then I was like converted, and I was like, well, I remember thinking, well, I'll never be happy again in my entire life if I don't have a PhD in economics. And my wife at the time was so supportive, and she believed in me. And so I took calculus for the first time in night school. Our son had just been born, And then I took a micro macro econ class for an MBA students. That was the only econ class I'd ever taken. It was just basically Greg Mankew's principal book. And then I applied to three schools um, because of a paper I had read that was by a Gary Becker student, and that was on crime. And he was at University of Georgia. People that used his data was at Emory. Those were the only two. I only applied to two schools, Emory and University of Georgia, because we wanted to be kind of near family. Because
Yep.
my wife's family was in Nashville, and my family was in Memphis, and my brother lived in Atlanta. And so then I got into both, and then Georgia was so much more livable for a young family than Atlanta. But that's funny. I didn't know that you'd only had calculus. That's all I had too. I was in the middle of taking
Hannah's
integral
wondering why
calculus.
she's the RA. Like right now, she's very
She's like,
quietly and
listen,
politely, like, I have had so
she's a
much more formal math
mathematician.
education than you
The
do.
standards have changed, but I'm glad that they weren't like that back then because then you two wouldn't be economists.
For
Well,
out,
Caitlin really shined on the page, I'm sure. They can read
One
an
day I'll ask
application.
them why they let me in, but I'll tell you this. I read a lot of math textbooks the summer before I started grad school.
Yeah,
There was a lot of catching up to do for sure.
Did
yeah.
you feel prepared once you got there?
Oh my gosh, no, I was flying by the seat of my pants the whole time. I was working 18 hours a day. I sometimes slept in the graduate student lounge because I was just studying so hard to catch up and like learn all the
Wow.
things that everybody else already knew.
Hmm,
But you know what? It was better than making spreadsheets for other people.
Now you're
fair
making
enough.
spreadsheets for yourself.
Yep. Now I'm making spreadsheets for
That's the
myself, living the
tagline. That's
dream.
the tagline of the show. Making spreadsheets for yourself with Claude Code. We'll workshop that one. Maybe that one's not the right way to do it. Oh,
So I think Hannah's brought us stuff.
yep.
Yeah, we should remind the audience that when Hannah was last here, how many episodes ago was it? Let's see. It
I
would
think it was
be
two.
yeah, there've been two in between. We basically introduced Hannah as our human RA and talked about the marriage data that we had discovered, but also said to Hannah, you know, we're seeing some trends in it where we're not quite sure they make sense. And we have a lot of questions about where these data actually come from. And so would be a very typical research assistant assignment. We said to Hannah quite vaguely, please go find out everything you can about our data and
Yeah.
and come back and teach us. And so Hannah is back.
I'm back. I can start presenting now if that
That
works.
would be fantastic. So I understand you brought some slides and you are going to basically fill us in on the data that we've been messing around with for a few weeks.
Yep. Okay, sharing my screen.
All right, so we've got slides loading, and Hanning, take it away.
Okay, so this is a human-led data exploration, as it says, of the Texas DSHS marriage and divorce indexes. I always like to say indices, so I might be saying that instead. Uh, okay, so they have very little information on their website about these data. They say that they cannot be considered comprehensive, so maybe there are some marriages or divorces that aren't in there. There may be data entry errors, and they found an error with the ages in the marriage indexes from 17, 18, and 19.
Oh,
And I concur that there are errors with these ages that I will get into that.
okay.
Mm.
But I can also tell you now, the ages are the same between the husband and wife or the applicant one and two. So that's
It
They
for every
record the
single marriage.
same
for every
age for
single
the
marriage.
husband and wife.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's another reason to side eye 2017 to 2019 then?
Yeah.
yeah.
So these are the variables. They're different between files, and there's a couple errors with what they say here. First,
And
I'll,
Hannah, when you like look at a slide, will you sort of like say what we're looking at for the sake
yeah,
of the Spotify people?
yeah. So this slide is composition of files. So I write that I download the same marriage data and divorce data that you had Claude download for you. And
Mm,
the files are a mix of TXT and CSV. When they're CSV, that makes my life a lot easier. And each row is a marriage license or divorce filing. So it has the name of the applicants and all that individual level data.
mm,
So in each file, there's a file number, the names of both people, the ages of both people, the marriage date, the place of marriage, but really that's only for marriage um, data sets 2020 and 2021. Really, it's the marriage license county that is in all of the data files.
Oh,
And
wait. So let me make sure I understand this, Hannah. So if you're getting married in Harris County, Texas, could you potentially go pull your license in another county?
yes, I verified that with Texas law, just some research online, that you're
Okay.
able to get your marriage license in Texas and then get married in another county. Um, but that's uncommon. But
Okay.
there are a
But even
few,
in two counties within Texas. So you could get your marriage license in
yes,
Texas in one county, like Travis County, and then go get married in Harris County. And the marriage data are going to reserve, are mostly going to record where you got the license.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
mm. The
And these
marriage
are,
data is where you get the license. You might get why would you ever get the license? Maybe because of residence.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine like if
When
you're
you get
in one
married
county in
somewhere.
Texas and that's where you live, you go ahead and get the license
Yeah.
there, but then you go and have like a beautiful wedding in the hill country in
Yeah.
another county and you just bring
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Right. Right. But it's not common. So the residence is listed. Is that what you said? You said residence and county
Just place of marriage. So that's like at the
place
county
of
level as
marriage.
well.
So we don't actually know where anybody lives. We just, at most, we know where they got their license and where they got married, but we don't actually
Yes.
know their residence.
And you
Okay.
only know where they got married for 2 of the years.
Okay. So mostly we just know where they got their license.
Yeah. And we're
Okay.
unlikely to use this 2020 and 2021 data
Right.
anyways. So,
Okay.
Huh.
um,
That's interesting. I didn't get married where I lived.
I don't remember.
I got married in Knoxville, Tennessee and we lived in Louisiana.
where did you
Yeah.
get your license?
That's a great question.
Don't say Texas.
I don't know actually where we
No,
got
it
it.
wouldn't have been.
That's great. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we got the license. Where
I'm
would
too
you?
young to know how any of this works. I didn't even know there was such thing as a marriage license, but now I know.
Now you
You
know.
have to say things like you're not marrying your brother. There's like all sorts of steps.
Yeah, exactly. You have to like swear. You have to like swear on the Bible and stuff. It's very
I don't think they
official,
make you
very
swear on the
very
Bible
technical.
anymore.
I'm kidding. I don't. I don't. I didn't know that you really have to make a vow that you don't aren't marrying your brother.
Well, I know there's some I can't remember. There were some forms about, this person isn't closely related to you or some
I think there
checkbox.
was a cousin marriage ban that happened at some point in American history.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, as usual, Scott, we're off on a tangent. Hannah.
As usual, I'm doing it. Okay,
No.
Okay, so the divorce data also have the number of children that the couple has under
That's
18
interesting.
and the date of the divorce. And I guess for divorce, they say it's technically a divorce decree or it's different than a marriage license. So, but
how good is the
regardless,
number
it's
of
like
children under 18 variable?
what is it?
How good is it?
I saw some random 99s, but those are just data entry
Missing.
that's
That's
missing. Yeah. There's a
that's the
lot of
thing.
zeros and ones and twos, so that's pretty believable.
That's really interesting if there aren't too many missing values. I didn't realize that was in there because, we could potentially, like, suppose we were looking at a change in divorce, we could look at some compositional questions like, is it driven by reductions in like childless couples getting divorced?
Hmm.
Well, even if it's just the abortion clinics, is this? Oh, this is divorce only.
Divorce only.
Oh, I
Yeah.
missed this. Okay, this whole time I thought
Yeah.
it was marriage. Okay.
And then divorce in 2014 also includes the races of both individuals, but I will add later that the whole file needs to be excluded, I think, because there's a huge drop in divorces in 2014 that it goes back up to normal in 2015. And it's clearly a data entry error or just
Bad news
missing
since
values.
2014 is our first post year because our treatment's
Yeah.
in 2013.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you just start the analysis in 2015?
I mean, we
Specific
could,
caveat?
yeah, we wouldn't start it there necessarily, but we could just basically not have 2014 as a post period.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it changes the parallel trend assumption, I think. It
Mm.
becomes and then we just have to decide, but it's like some kind of longer term effect. We've never really talked about using divorce. We haven't really talked a ton about divorce as an outcome anyway, though.
No, I've been super focused on marriage, but
Mm.
Mhm.
I could see taking a look at divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Getting on to slide 3. So now we'll get into data cleaning a little bit. The TXT files are all organized very differently, and this is where the bulk of my work comes in, is cleaning these
Mm.
differently organized uh, files. So you
Oh,
can
bless
see
your heart.
here
Those- So,
the
Hannah, for folks who are looking,
yeah.
like these are text files where the data are separated in different ways, like different amounts of, like there's tabs, spaces,
Hmm.
asterisks.
Yeah, there's asterisk delimiters. There are not shown here, but quotation delimiters.
Wow.
Um, yeah, some of
Good
them have
times.
How'd you
tabs.
do it? Tell us about your process to figure out what was going on. Was it well documented?
Yes, that's my next few slides.
Okay.
Here are some more examples of differently organized files. Here are the
Mm.
quotations.
Oh, this is the sort of thing that makes you sad when you open all the files and you realize every year is formatted differently.
Mm.
And we have some question marks denoting missing variables.
Mm.
Oh, and I wanted to shout out Caitlin's
Oh,
marriage from
What? Get
year
out of here.
2000 in Travis
there I am
County.
getting married at 22, y'all.
Oh my
That's just a
gosh. The
baby.
listeners can tell that Hannah did a little bit more forensic work than a little detective work. It's like like that Henry Louis Gates show. It's like this
Oh yeah,
telling
Roots.
your story.
Yeah, so for folks who are listening, I got married for the first time to Adam Myers. I guess we got our marriage license in Travis County, Texas, which is where we lived in Austin at the time. Um, got married on April Fool's Day, 2000. It
Aw,
was that or tax day. Those were the only Saturdays that were left.
that was
Yeah.
good. That was a
Coincidentally,
good
I
joke. That was a nice little joke you guys could have going forward for a while, right? April Fool's Day.
Well, Adam had three brothers. I use past tense because for folks who don't know, Adam passed away 14 years ago. But he had three brothers, and one of them threatened that during the wedding, when the officiant said, "Does anybody object?" he was going to stand up and say he objected because I was carrying his child. And I
April
was like,
Fool's.
"Your grandmother is going to have a stroke. You
He
cannot do this."
won't.
It was like April Fool. Yeah, it was definitely April Fool's. But I was like, "Do not, don't you dare!" And I made sure there was no opportunity to object.
There you go.
Yeah,
I found this I did this forensic work on April Fool's, so on your
it's funny.
26th
26th
anniversary.
anniversary. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, moving on. Here's about my initial cleanup of the data. So I used Copilot initially to help me write a Python script to parse the text files into CSV format. And it needed to be really flexible because all of these files are organized differently.
Mm.
They have different column headers, column order, different delimiters. Sometimes there are middle initials, different format of date. This was very time consuming and it was iterative. So I asked Copilot to write a script. I found that it wasn't doing everything I wanted it to do. I asked it to make adjustments, like treating white space delimiters with fixed width parsing and treating pound signs as missing data. So I was going through the data visually and giving Copilot very specific prompts about what I wanted it to do. And then I decided there are initial or additional cleanup that I will do in Stata.
Hmm.
And
So, Hannah,
Mm.
do you use Copilot for coding a lot, or was this like you do?
I do, but I will add that I found Copilot to not be good enough at this task. So I pivoted to regular free Claude, which is not Claude Code Claude.
Hmm.
But I know from your project and from other work that Claude is better at coding than maybe any of the other AI platforms out there. And at this point, I was like, I need help from the AI. So that's what I did.
Mm.
I
Is
think people can
Microsoft
argue.
Copilot different from GitHub Copilot? Microsoft Copilot's its own thing?
Yeah, I think GitHub Copilot is the Claude Code version of Copilot. And this,
I see.
yeah,
Okay. So how much did this initial cleanup time take you?
about half the time I spent on this whole cleanup process or preparing all of this work, which was about 40 hours. So 20 hours was on the parsing and the data
Mm.
cleaning with Python. And I have another slide in here, but I went through all of the code visually to make sure I knew exactly what it was doing. I can understand what Python code is doing from reading it, but I'm not quite good enough with Python to write a whole cleaning script without
Yeah.
help.
What is your goal? What's your like, you get all this data, you just downloaded it. Tell me what your process was to break it up into tasks. Like what was your thing that would have said, I need to do this first, having downloaded it?
Well, I knew it needed to be in CSV format in order to put it in Stata and with text files that are all formatted very differently, I needed a parsing strategy. And I knew it was going to be more complicated than a single script because all of the files are formatted very differently.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah. So this is an example of how the initial Python script did not do the job. You can see
Mm.
different errors on this slide, like here, the marriage date is wrongly equal to the divorce date. Um,
Mm.
So, what are the
it's,
columns here? So, we've got, is the
yeah,
unit of observation here?
it
This
is.
is the marriage
This is the
date.
divorce data.
Oh,
So
okay.
where I find, and I made this decision that if it is a divorce data row, and divorce date is missing, but they have marriage date, then I believe that it was incorrectly parsed. The date was
Mm,
incorrectly parsed as the marriage date when it should be the divorce date. And
Mm.
it makes sense because that date is in 2013, which is the file is 2013 divorce data. So
right. So, these
um,
divorces should be in 2013, and that one that you've highlighted with a marriage in December 2013, that's got to be the divorce.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And similarly, husband race equal to wife name and dates county code wrongly part of county name.
Yeah.
So this is a total mess.
Mm.
So these are some of the strategies that the Python code included. You can detect the format of the file by reading the first non-header line, like are there any quotation marks or are there tab delimiters, white space delimiters? And then this was new for me, defining regular expression regex
Yeah. Good
patterns.
old regex.
Yeah, so this command where redate is equal to, you can kind of see, it would be hard to explain to the Spotify listeners, but we have two characters, two numbers in between, two slashes, and then either two or four digits in the last slash area.
Yeah.
So that's telling Python you can expect a date and you should read this as a date. And then we're stripping all of the white space quotes, asterisks, and pound signs from each row. And then I forced the expected number of variables. It should have 10 or 12 if it's the 2014 divorce file containing race, and define what variable to expect in each field. Should it be a number, or a number like a date, a number like an age, or a word like a person's name? And then there were some fixed width files where it's easy enough as saying the husband name should occupy no more characters than 7 through 39 of this line. This was a learning experience for me. I've never parsed text files like this, and it's
Yeah.
cool. I liked
The
learning
first
it.
time I learned regex, I was like so excited to discover it because I love it's basically a way to think about patterns in text and recognizing patterns in text. You know, the way that here you're recognizing like this must be a date if it's, formatted in this way. And at the same time, regex is the place where I've never written a line of code with a regex expression in it that hasn't thrown an error the first time. Like I've literally
Oh yeah.
never,
Gosh.
never
You feel like
gotten
you
it right.
solved the Rubik's Cube. You feel like you
It
solved
is.
the Rubik's Cube when you get it to finally work.
Yeah, there's
I'm
all these
terrible
like
at
places
it.
online where you plug it in to see what it's going to do. But anyway, I feel like Claude is I might be a little happy Claude's taking this
Mm.
one from me in the end.
Hmm.
Gosh,
Yeah, and
so many opportunities for Claude to mess up.
Right. I'm simultaneously thinking that Claude like shielded us from all of this. Claude just said, "Oh, here's some marriage
mhm.
fate. I'll
Yeah,
download you and show
exactly.
you stuff." And we were like,
He's
"Thank you."
like the parents who won't fight in front of the kids.
Exactly. And behind the
Yeah.
scenes, Claude's like, "Oh my God, every single one of these files is different, and I got to like
Yeah.
figure out how to parse it." And
Right.
he didn't even tell
Yeah,
us.
I know, and I'm really
Or
curious
he
to
didn't
see
do
how
as
he
good a
did
job
it.
as Hannah. I'm sorry, Hannah, what'd you say?
No, I'm just curious to see if he did do all this work in the background and if he did it correctly.
We
Yeah,
should actually get this PowerPoint from you and then have Claude audit his own work with
Hmm.
it and see if he caught all this stuff. He'll say he did, but we should figure out something. Yeah.
should have Hannah
Yeah.
audit it too. I mean, she can just join their like marriage panels and see how well they line up.
That's right. The numbers should be identical.
Hmm. Does
Yep.
Claude have, can it show you the Python script it might have
Yeah.
used to do
Uh-huh.
this? You can ask it to give that to you.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah.
all the
Okay.
directories are organized really nicely.
Hmm. Okay. So, here are some more observations I made once I got all the CSV files into Stata. Um, some of the county codes are FIPS, some of them are comptroller codes, which I wasn't familiar with before. I don't know if that exists in every state, but I was able to map the comptroller codes to county FIPS codes. And then, like I said earlier, I concur that the marriage files 2017 through 2019 has unreliable ages for the husband and wife. And the marriage files 2020 and 2021 have two sets of county variables, the license and the place of marriage. And I confirmed, I mentioned this earlier, that you're able to get a license in one county in Texas and then marry in another one. So we
Yeah.
have both this information for these two files.
You
Yeah. And
said
we
it's not
just
common though? You said it's not a very common thing for them to do that?
Yeah, I didn't do too much research on what other states' policies are, but yeah, in Texas, it's pretty uncommon. And in the data, it's also pretty uncommon.
Gosh, I never even thought about that, Caitlin, that it's like what's the effect that you're looking for, you know? Because it's
right.
like I just kind of thought of it as I live in this county and I get married,
Yeah. I
which
mean,
is kind of what we have to assume a little bit, right?
I think we're forced to use the where are they licensed variable, as Hannah said earlier. That's the only one we have
The only one, yeah.
continuously throughout the period anyway. But if I had to pick between those two, if those are our two options, that's the one I would choose. Right?
I
Because
know, but it's
I think you're more likely to get your license near where you live. And that's what we want to use for calculating distance to the nearest abortion facility.
I
I know,
agree.
but the behavioral model, it's not as clear to me what the behavioral model is that it used beforehand and presented this. I was always just thinking abortion clinic closures affect wherever you live and work at the relative to the closure. But if you like if you like live and work in Houston, but your family, you grew up in Dallas, it's not at all unreasonable to think that you are going to get married in Dallas.
Sure. I mean, we can check. I think when Hannah says this is uncommon, Hannah, are you referring to it's uncommon to get your license in one place in Texas and then get married in another state or country, not in another county, right?
Um, I don't have stats for either of them, but
Okay.
the way I discovered this was um, some of the counties wouldn't merge because they were, or some of the county names wouldn't merge because they weren't even counties in Texas. So
Oh,
that's when I discovered this error, but I should have done, and I will do just a quick check for what percentage of people are getting married in a different state or getting married in a different county in Texas.
Okay.
where the there's a mismatch between those two cells.
Exactly.
All right.
Um, and then just a quick note is that I know that gay marriage was legalized in Texas in 2015, and yet the marriage files in 2016 and 20 through 2019 continue to write husband name and wife name. And
Huh.
I did find some what looked like women's names in the husband name cell and vice versa. So
Mm.
I don't
This is
know.
problematic.
Yeah, it is. I think it is problematic if we're studying abortion. So we'll have to think about that.
Hmm. It's interesting because with gay marriage being legalized, if anything, I would have thought marriages would have gone up because there's a population that's now eligible to be married and they might have some pent-up demand to be married. But 2017, you'll show us in a second, but that's where we saw marriages go down. So
Yeah.
it's not about this.
Yeah.
But I thought it would have been 2015. We see marriages go down 2018.
2017, 2018. Oh, well,
I think it's
maybe.
from 2017 to 2018 they go
Yeah,
down.
17's the
Okay.
peak.
Okay, maybe.
But we could figure that out. We could
All
do
right.
like, we could do fuzzy matching
Yeah.
on the person's name and male sounding names. And if they're
Yeah.
two male, we could see if there's a change in male sounding pairs,
Right. I mean, I think there
drop
certainly are
them.
algorithms to infer gender from names. Obviously, there's error for lots of reasons, but I think it would certainly be one thing to investigate. Maybe then, now that I've got my years straight, I guess it's possible that there was kind of an increase in gay marriage because it's just become legal. There's maybe a backlog in demand, a little bit of a rise 2015, 2016, 2017. But I still think that fall in 2018 is pretty sus. It's just,
Oh yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's cut in half. It's
not
like
this.
80,000 fewer marriages.
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay, I discovered a lot of missing county ID, so I think we'll just have to drop these cases because that's
Just in the divorce
variable.
data, though.
Yes, but some, not as many, but some in the marriage data as well in 2012
Yeah.
and 2013.
And we'll have to record that when we talk about the data cleaning, right? Of how many of the marriage, what percent of the marriage records do we have to drop because we were missing county?
Right, right.
Okay.
And then,
Oh,
as we all know, the unusual
Claude
drop.
made this seem like perfect data. Now it feels like we're just left with lots of we didn't know how the sausage was being made a little very well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not surprised that he did that.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
this is supposed to say 2018, the unusual drop in marriages, and then the unusual drop in divorces in 2014.
Hmm.
And then I have demographic data as well. I got ACS data from the Census API, and they have to be 5-year estimates because the 1-year estimates are only published for counties with small populations.
I'm just going to shout out for you, Hannah, and for other folks who are interested that so the variables that you were pulling are population, age, race, education, income, employment, and poverty.
Hmm.
And the SAPE program, Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates, which I think is a USDA program, has annual county level estimates of median household income and poverty rates for all counties, not no suppression. And the BLS has monthly and annual county level employment statistics. But you don't have to go get those because I have them on my computer because I use them
Mm.
every other day of my life. So we'll probably replace the ACS moving averages with the annual estimates when we can.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't know those existed, but that's great. Uh, so then I merge all the data. I have to do a crosswalk file to map the comptroller codes to the county FIPS codes. And now I have some maps and graphs. This
Awesome. Got a
is,
time trend.
yes, this is a map of the number of marriages in Texas by year. And Claude made something very similar for you guys. It checked the numbers from the DSHS using CDC data. And I think you saw this in your graph that Claude made, that the CDC also has a big drop in marriages in 20 from 2017 to 2018.
Right.
But I believe that this DSHS data is informing the CDC counts, so I'm not surprised
Yeah,
there's
that's
also a drop.
crazy. That's wild. So it's
Yeah.
not true, even in the ACS.
Well, yeah, Hannah hasn't told us about the ACS yet, I
Yeah.
guess. But like, so we're looking at three trend lines, and the first two of them are basically what Claude showed us. And we'll merge and compare and all. But the big concern is there's a huge drop in marriages in the Texas DSHS data and the CDC data. Although, as Hannah said, CDC is probably based on Texas. But then what'd you
Mhm.
do with the ACS? Because this is new. We haven't seen this.
Yeah, the ACS is new. This isn't a perfect comparison because ACS is a survey-based data set where they ask were you married in the last 12 months. So there's going to be more marriages than in the CDC and DSHS data. But I thought we could just compare trend lines. And interestingly, there is a little drop from
Yeah,
2017 to 2018.
that's crazy.
Mhm.
How big is that? 20, 25 to it's maybe like 15,000 or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking that might be
Still,
like 15%.
there's a
Yeah,
drop in 2018 for all three trends, but we're feeling like the drop in DSHS was is well, we weren't. I would think ACS coming from a survey, so it's
it's different.
That is really, I mean, to be clear, the drop in the ACS measure of marriages isn't, I think, as big, as large as the drop in the others, but it's definitely there. Like maybe there really was a drop in
definitely there.
marriages.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind
But
of what I
why?
think.
I
I don't
wonder
know.
if other states, what the world?
Well, I have a map of um, the whole country
Let's,
after my divorces.
all right, well, wait.
Yeah. So this is more clear. This is a map of number of divorces in Texas by year with DSHS, CDC, and ACS. And the CDC and ACS lines are very straight. And there's
Mhm.
a very unusual drop in divorces in 2014 in DSHS. So
The Texas data is it basically zero, close to zero in 2014? Looks like
no,
it.
it's around 10,000.
10,000, okay.
Yeah, I think 11,000 was the
I
exact.
might be one of those people who likes the y-axis to go down to zero, but,
Yeah, you're
but okay,
right.
10,000, 10,000. That's that can't be right.
Yeah, that's not right. And then here's number of marriages in the US by year with CDC and ACS. So CDC actually has an increase in marriages in the country from 17 to 18, and ACS
Mm.
has a decrease. So I don't really know what to make of that.
Oh, so the rest of the country seeing that 2017 to 2018 decline, although it's probably a lot bigger. The scale of that's a lot larger. But there is a 2017 to 2018 decline in the ACS marriages, just like there was with Texas.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
mean,
that on here it's less noticeable and it's a secular decline. It keeps going. But in Texas, what did it do in Texas, Santa? Could you go back?
Mm.
yeah, in Texas it bounces down and back up.
Is it missing 2020? There's no little dot for 2020.
Yeah, there's no 2020 data for ACS. Must have been COVID.
Hmm.
I'm thinking, sometimes when I see trends in demographic outcomes, I'm like, okay, well, one thing we could do is obviously we could control for age, right? Because the changing age profile of the population can drive some of this. But the Texas data, the changes are just too big for that to be it.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any confidence in the 2018 and on for
Hmm.
Texas.
Mhm. And I reached out to DSHS asking for reasons behind their decline in marriages from 17 to 18 and decline in divorces from 13 to 14. And they said they're unable to provide a reason. And I even followed up again with a different Texas data provider, and they never got back to me despite follow up.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's so
I wonder if
frustrating.
other government collected Texas government collected statistics saw weird blips.
I mean, they've revised statistics before for sure. I know that there's one paper in Econ that's looking at the effect of funding for sexual and reproductive health in Texas that was using Texas Department of State health statistics. That's a mouthful. Uh, on births. And when that paper was just about done, they apparently revised the data like very, very substantially for what had appeared to be a final data release. So I think that there have been changes before.
I see.
This is a while ago now, right? I mean, we're looking at
yeah.
2018. You'd think if people were emailing them and like Hannah is and saying, hey, where did all the marriages go? And it was a mistake, they'd have fixed it by now.
Yeah, and I think one thing we could do, and I started working on this, but I think I didn't find anything interesting, was see if the decline is between 13 and 14 is concentrated in certain counties. Then we can figure out are certain counties not reporting to the state.
It's
Uh,
going to be disproportionately affected by five counties.
Right.
right.
Because small counties aren't going to move it. But it is a good idea to look and see if we have a county just drop out of the data. I don't think we've done that.
Yeah,
No.
we can look at percentage declines in each county.
Yeah. Harris, it's Harris, Bezer, Travis, Bezer, San Antonio.
Tarrant.
What is that one?
Tarrant, isn't that Dallas?
Is it Tarrant? Is it
I think
Tarrant
it's
County?
Tarrant
It's
County.
Dallas, Fort Worth. So
Yeah.
whatever those two would
I always leave
become.
Fort Worth
Maybe
off.
that
That
was
makes me
Dallas
mad.
County. Is it not Dallas County?
Mm, say, I don't know, Scott.
But it's 41% of the state population comes from those five counties. So I wouldn't be surprised if I bet it's not 41%. The cities some but sometimes the cities do have lower marriage rates, so it could be lower than 41%, but it's Texas, so it might be higher.
Scott, you're right. So just for our Texans who are going to write and yell at us, Dallas is in Dallas County and Fort Worth's in Tarrant County.
There we go.
Okay,
I
Hmm.
got 4 out of 5 right.
pretty good.
Just like, you know what? This reminds me of that night at trivia night when I added something to the
I
team.
brought Scott. Hannah, do you ever play trivia at the Middlebury Marquee when you
Yeah, I
lived?
went a couple times.
Yeah,
I
so
wasn't very good.
we're regulars. I brought Scott. He's pretty good.
I got something. I got something about an Xbox and something else. I don't
You
remember.
have a lot of random pop culture knowledge.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do
All
you
right.
like the ones with the where they play the song backwards? Are
I
you good
love
at
it.
those?
Shout out to yeah to Big Guys Entertainment and playing
Hmm.
Reverse It, where they play the pop song backwards and you have to identify it.
Backmasking. When I was a kid, that was how the devil would communicate.
That's
Was
right. Well, you
they
listen
would
for the devil's
backmask.
message while figuring out that it is Boys to Men,
All I wanted to do was figure out where
Motown
to get these
Philly.
backmasking tape recorders that would let you even listen to that. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Anyway, that's probably off topic, right?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna
It's
keep us on
the
top. We
Academy
can't keep having
Awards
our
music.
podcast. Like we gotta let Hannah tell us
You're
all
gonna
the
play
important stuff.
backmasked music to tell us to keep going.
Yeah.
It's like at the Academy Awards. All right, what do we got?
Okay, this is number of divorces in the US by year, showing CDC and ACS trend lines, and there's nothing odd happening between 2013 and 14. So I think that confirms there's an issue with the
Mhm.
DSHS data.
Right.
And I made a couple maps. They don't show anything that interesting because we don't have any abortion. I haven't worked with the abortion data yet. But
That's a
changes in
great map.
marriages per 1,000 population between 2016, so 2 year or a year before the policy change, and then 2016, 3 years after the policy change.
I love that map. looks like almost like a cartoon.
Yeah. What do you think
No
of
way.
my color scheme, Caitlin? I know you have strong opinions on color schemes.
It's patriotic. For folks who aren't looking, it's red and blue and red's
Red and
never
blue,
my
right?
favorite. It's just fine. Your projection's nice. It's just fine. It's fine. Two things I'll note are that I see, knowing the geography of Texas, that the places where you're measuring increases in marriages, some of them are like Dallas, Fort Worth, the Houston area, San Antonio, Austin, like some of them are kind of urban. I feel like there's also kind of a lot of noise in the more rural areas, and you tend to see that
Mhm.
because rural areas have smaller populations, they get noisy, and sometimes you see kind of big changes in there in relative terms.
hmm Yeah. I had to do a little Texas geography learning to understand what I'm seeing here because I'm not familiar with Texas. And then here's divorces, a lot more red, so a lot more decreases in divorces than
Yeah. Divorce is on the
marriage.
decline, I hear.
Is that drop in the 2014?
Uh, well, I don't include
Oh, it's just
2014 at
12
all.
to 16, so it just skips
Yeah,
right over it.
exactly.
Okay.
And then you asked last time you were wondering if the this kind of data exists for other states, and I cautiously conclude that no other state publishes statewide free couples level marriage and divorce indexes like Texas. I looked at several state websites and I found many states allow you to search their indices by entering the names of both spouses, but they don't publish tables of names like Texas does.
Mm,
Some states have county by year level statistics, numbers of marriages and divorces only. And then some states, they charge you a fee to even search for a marriage certificate, which is different than license. But
mm.
I think Texas is unique.
Jessica Fong at Michigan, she has a new paper on online dating. She has state level marriage data, but I think she somehow, I think she might have got it through FOIA requests. So I don't know, and I don't know how she got it. It's interesting that it must be that it is not easy to get if you can find it.
Yeah, I think you can probably request it for some states, but I didn't see anything where it's right there, easy to download
Right, right.
immediately.
Yeah. So for folks who don't know, FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, and under US law, you can request public data from US governmental organizations, but there are exceptions for it. They don't, and I'm not a lawyer, but I know there are exceptions for things that, like, for instance, you can't go to my high school and ask for my test scores, for Caitlin Myers. Like, there's some privacy stuff, which
What
they
about your
might.
calculus, all those calculus classes you took? That's why I couldn't find them because
That's
of the
why, no, yeah,
suppression.
no, nobody found out about the lack of math. Um, I actually took calculus in high school. It's a great class.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
but Hannah, one thing I'm wondering, you might want to just kind of add this to a list. So you mentioned that they have searchable databases like Illinois and Minnesota. Sometimes if you dig around, and this is the type of thing I totally ask Claude to do, and like maybe you would too, but you'll realize that the table that's underlying that query is public and that you can
Mm,
just pull it. So
mm,
sometimes the table's hidden in there and you can get it, and other times it is not, and they have protected it, and you cannot just download the data. But we can
okay.
take a look if you haven't.
Yeah. Are we interested in the bordering states to Texas, like New Mexico and
Honestly, for our
Louisiana?
project, I think if we had, Scott, tell me what you think. If we had border states, it would afford us kind of additional controls that might reasonable people could disagree, be kind of more culturally and demographically similar to Texas than if we were using Minnesota, which is one of the states that you said had some data, but not publicly, like you have to search the database.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but on the other hand, I think our within Texas variation is pretty rich and it's a big state with a big population and
Yeah.
it
Don't
doesn't
we
feel.
need, if we get Oklahoma, then you have all the distance.
I have all the distance. Like
So
the
we would
more, if
just
we get
need
more marriage data, we've got the distance data.
because if you have Oklahoma, you've got closures of clinics, you just would need to know which counties are not seeing any changes in their. I mean, it'd
Mm-hmm.
give us more, probably would help with this continuous dosage diff and diff. You have a bunch of never changers.
Yeah.
zero dose people that are used to impute counterfactuals. So it's not crazy that we would get it. They just would probably be mostly control groups.
Yeah. But the
That's not
problem is
that's
it
not a
seems
wild
like
idea.
yeah, but it seems like the states that Hannah did turn up, I mean, none of them are publishing the data
Yeah.
as easily. I put easy in quotes now that I know what Hannah had to do to parse all those differently formatted text files.
Yeah.
But but yeah, Hannah, did you happen to notice if the bordering states in particular had the searchable websites?
No, the fact that Oklahoma's here is just a coincidence. I didn't think about that at the time, but I
Hmm.
should have. But Oklahoma does have county by year level statistics, so we could know how many marriages were happening in each
Yeah,
county
we
in
might be
each
able to
year.
use that. We'll flag it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just wanted to add this screenshot from 1850s, 1860s Missouri records. So you can see names and I don't know, these are probably county codes on the right.
Hmm.
So there is this data, but in this format that would not be, it would be much harder than parsing the text
Wait a
file.
second. You found this data?
I found this data from Missouri. They say they
You found
published,
Missouri records that are just like the Texas records of the people's names?
well, it's in this
Handwritten?
format.
From
It's
the 1850s,
yeah, 1850s. That's probably the most important note.
Scott, the most important part,
I didn't
1850s.
catch all that. What did you say? Just kidding. That's, but no, is that what you found? You found these? You found this
That's
is
what
the
I
universe
found.
of marriage certificates in county level, year to year for 20, whatever, however many years that is in Missouri counties?
Yeah, but I think in more recent years, they don't publish this anymore. This is very historic data.
Sure, no, but you
Yeah,
found it. Where
I
was
did
it?
find it. Yeah, it was on the Missouri website, Missouri government
It's the
website.
universe of all the marriages in Missouri County level for those years. 17
Well,
years of data.
yeah, they might say it's exhaustive and maybe it's not, but yes, that's what they claim.
And it's not been digitized.
Not that I saw.
Ooh, will you
As
get
a
it?
genealogy researcher, I'm going to guess it has been digitized,
Okay.
Will you
but
get
it's
it
probably
anyway?
behind a paywall.
Hmm.
Will you download it for us, Santa, and we can put it in our Dropbox?
Sure, sure.
I wonder if Claude knows how to work with this. We could probably
See
send
if
this up
Claude can read
to,
cursive.
we could send it up to OpenAI and hey, see if GPT-4o Mini could extract that for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
OCR, isn't that what that is? Optic
Mm-hmm.
something
Mm-hmm.
something. We could pull
Yeah.
that out.
But
We
we
should
don't
just grab
have,
it.
we probably don't have a board. You just want
We
to
don't have any abortion
investigate.
clinic
Yeah,
closures. They're all
my
zero.
abortion data
We
do
need to have
not
it
go
turned
back to
on.
1850 when abortion was
You're,
probably
you
legal
know
in
what?
Missouri. But it was
It's
probably,
time to keep rewinding that
yeah.
Myers abortion clinic database a little bit further
It's
back.
going to take me a
To
while to go back from 2009 to
really?
1850.
Oh shoot,
Gotta call
shoot.
Joanna
That'll be
Leahy. She
season
might be on
two of The
that.
Odd Couple.
All right.
Okay, I have a short time slide. I spent 33.5 hours. I did my best to track every little snippet of time I was working on this. And about 50% of the time was working with the Python code to parse the marriage and divorce data correctly.
Mm.
And was this a well-paid position, Hannah?
It was not a well-paid position, but it was paid in the pleasure I got out
Shadow
of doing
prices,
it.
shadow wages.
All
There it is.
right.
There's the wages. I love the feeling.
And then I have two slides on thoughts. One is that I got joy out of doing the coding myself and
Mm,
making discoveries about the data slowly.
Mm.
And then that Python is really crucial for parsing these messy text files, and that I'm more comfortable using AI to write these scripts because I can look over the code that it writes and know what's happening to the data. Whereas if you ask Claude Code to parse the data, you might not know how it's doing it. So
hmm
I am using AI in this project, but I would argue that it's a little more human with human oversight.
Yeah.
And
And
then
few mortals can write regex expressions without help.
yeah, it's true. And I don't know about this, and I might be naive, but I suspect that an autonomous AI agent would be unlikely to parse the text files correctly on its first try. Maybe it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes rewriting its code, but I wonder if it made mistakes and isn't telling you or is using incorrectly parsed data. So it'll be interesting to see the output of its cleaning and see how well it did it.
Did we give you an invite, Hannah, to the Dropbox?
No,
Okay,
not
we
yet.
need to do that,
Yeah, we
Caitlin.
got to do that so she can go. Now
Because
she's gonna
we
like
need to
check on
dump all this
Claude.
stuff in there, and we got to find uh we got to find out. Well, we got to kind of figure out this human verification part,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is when do we bring him in? When do we bring the human in? And how much? I mean, it's possible the human and the AI both are making errors in different
Yeah, it's
places.
true. I'm not perfect either.
Yeah, no. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that we need to explore. And the easiest thing is just to have your annual counts and your
Yep.
counts by county, and if they are not numerically identical, then someone didn't get the same answer.
Right.
Right.
I think we should do that
Yeah,
next
for
just to
sure.
check.
And
Mhm.
also summary statistics on some of the other
Yep.
variables. Maybe they're
Yep.
less
Exactly.
important, but age and race and so forth.
Yep. Yep.
Hannah, this is just like when Claude suggests us what we should do next, and we say
Hmm.
yes. We're
Hmm.
That's
yeah,
right.
summary
Permit
statistics.
auto.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Accept every time. Accept every time. I've become very compliant. Anything anybody wants, accept. Accept. Hit the middle button whenever anybody asks me something.
And then the final thing is that I reached out to data providers, and Claude probably wouldn't do that without you telling him to, or maybe you would take over and do that. So I just want to shout out the one thing that humans definitely still have to do at this stage because it's sad to see all of the work that AI can replace. So I'll just
Mm.
Not
add
that the
that.
humans at the Texas Department of Health Statistics actually
Well, they didn't respond to
True,
the
knew
email,
the
true.
right?
answer to the
They didn't
question.
give
Yeah,
shout
it
out
was
to the
fruitless, but
humans that didn't respond to my
hmm
any of my requests.
It still takes
hmm
humans to, yeah, to ghost you.
hmm
That's right. Humans, ghosts. Well, Hannah, that
All
was
right.
awesome. All right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot for us to think about.
It is. This is really, really helpful. I both feel strangely reassured to know that the dip in 2018 is real,
Yeah,
and a big question mark for me about how Claude figured out all that parsing without ever telling us a single thing about it, and whether
Hmm.
it actually, like, for all I know, it has a bunch of age fields that have people's names
totally.
in it, and we just don't
We
know.
Yeah.
got to dig into that. We need to dig
So
into that.
that'll be our next step.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
need to share you the screen. We'll do that off the thing.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, then I have the slides, but maybe what we could do is the next time we could kind of do the results of trying to get to the bottom of how well Claude did do the problems that Hannah had identified. Could do that. And maybe Hannah, we send you his Python scripts if you want to look
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
You don't have to. That's some more work, but
No, that sounds
we
like a
could
good
figure
idea.
out
I'd do it.
something ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we thinking? Kaylin, are we getting close to running a regression or
I am
no?
so ready to run a regression,
You're
Scott.
ready
I
now.
told you that I tend to like just wait and wait and wait,
Yeah.
but like as soon as Hannah reassures me that we understand the data as much as we're going to and that the data are right, we're going to run a regression. I'm really ready.
You're
Maybe
ready.
next time, we'll see. We got to let Hannah cross validate, but
Okay.
I think it's getting to be time.
All
What do you
right.
think? What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think so. I remembered you saying how you're very, very slow to run a regression, but then I was thinking, I bet she didn't mean a month and a half though.
Yeah, I didn't mean forever. Like, let's
You
go.
meant you meant like, hey, let's get some work done. Let's get all these things
Right.
done so we can
Like, I
actually
don't
get
run
to
a
the
regression on
project.
the first or second date, but like
Right.
this is starting to get,
This is like you're getting older.
yes, exactly. I'm getting older. Let's see a
Okay.
coefficient.
All right. All right. So what we're gonna need to be all on the same page that the data is, we agree on, I guess we all need to be the same page that the data is what we're going to use.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, we're all going to need to be on the same page about whether the word data is singular or plural, but
Oh gosh. Which one is it? Datum
I'm,
or datas?
yeah,
Datas. You do the
I
S at
think
the end.
data
Is
is
that right?
plural. Nobody
I
else
Dati.
learned
thinks
that
that
from
anymore.
It's
you, and I always
dati.
say plural now.
I
What
tell
is
all
it?
my thesis students, Scott, that at least when you're writing a thesis for me, the word data is plural, and then you can do whatever you want after you
Yeah.
leave home.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
All right.
Until next
Well,
time.
until
Okay,
next
sounds
time,
good.
good to see everybody. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
y'all.
She hated when I called when it's late. I hope I never